Hello guys, if you like my awesome gaming videos, my programming and web development courses, my editing courses and editing videos, and my tech talks and tech guidance, then you can consider subscribing to my channel and click on this bell icon to stay. Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So this is the part 4 of our React, Django and Redux tutorial, and here we're going to work with our dynamic routing, and we're going to pass our ID into the API, into the URL, and based on this particular project ID, suppose ID 1, 2 or 3, based on this dynamic ID, we're gonna get all of our data from our API using the use params hook. So we're gonna work with the dynamic routing here. This is very important for many complex application or many application. You have to do this, and we're gonna use our use params hook to get the particular ID that we pass in the URL. So as you can see, if I go to our React Router version 6, as you can see, if you go to the hooks, and here we have the use params. If I zoom in, as you can see, in the route we just pass our ID. Here is the user ID, and we're gonna pass our project ID, and based on that ID we need to have our element that we have to use. And this is the same important thing. You don't need to do any other thing. So let me go to our application and get it started. And this is our main application, this is our main client. But before that we need to open our server. So here we need to go to our cd -- to go to our root application, and here we need to go to our server. Now we are in the server, we need to just turn it on. So python manage.py run server, and make sure you have this XAMPP installed and XAMPP server running. As you can see, it is running properly. And let me go to our server and go to our API. As you can see, there all the information, particular ID, suppose ID of 1, you just press ID of 1, and as you can see, you get all the information based on ID of 1. And this is completely dynamic. If you go to the ID of 2, you see the information of ID of 2, and you can also modify those stuffs. So if I go to this, we need just the user ID here, but in our project it is our project ID. So if I need to go there, so this is very important. So make sure you have the ID, and this is the ID that we're gonna use in our use params. As you can see, this is the thing that we need to catch using the use params hook. So let me check how can we do that, and let's go to our application and let's check it out. First, let me create a component called detail of project.jsx. This will hold all the details of our project by the ID. So create a functional component called detail project, and here we need to hold this ID. Okay, let me just get it, detail project by ID, and we're gonna pass that ID here. Okay, we're gonna use those things, and to do that we need to go to our app.js, where we just define all of our browser router, and inside the browser router we have in the routes we have all the paths, like we have the project list and we have add project. Now we need to have one more thing. So here I'm just copying this one and paste it here, and I just name it as detail of project, detail-project, and / give a dynamic ID. You need to use colon and just name it ID. You can name it as project ID if you want, but I'm gonna name it just simple ID. Okay, this is the thing, the dynamic ID we need to hold. Make sure in the element we need to hold our detail of project. Okay, so this is the element that we need to have, detail project, that we have created in this component tree. As you can see, this is the thing, this is the component we're going to load when we go to our detail project / particular ID, suppose particular ID of 1, 2 or 3. Okay, it is completely dynamic. As you can see in the API, it should be dynamic. We don't know which one, just give an ID and it will catch that ID. Okay, we are just sending this particular ID to our detail project component here. And here what we need to do, we just need to catch it. We need to use params. Okay, this is very important. So I'm gonna just destructure it and get the ID from the use params, and use params is coming from React Router DOM, which is very important. Okay, so let me write it here, and when you just write it, you can catch it. I'm just printing it here, the ID, and let me check if it is working or not. Detail project, if I go to our project list here in the link tag, as you can see, we can go from this page to our detail page. If you click on view, you go to our detail page. So let me uncomment this out. As you can see, it is now uncommented, and in the link tag we need to give to where we are going. Okay, so for that you need to pass this, and here we are going to our detail of project, detail dash project, detail of project, and here in the slash you just add that dynamic id. Actually this is project.id, okay, that we are passing because we have the access to each particular projects in the map, as you can see in the all project list component, and we need to pass the id, and project.id is holding the id of the current project that we need to see the detail. Okay, so you just need to go to detail project slash project id. So this is the thing, and this is the same URL you are going inside that. You are going to detail project slash id. So we need to add one more thing, just go there, and so here we need to add one more backslash. I think it will work just fine, and let's check it out, and let's run our backend and front end as well. So here is our application. If I just go to our view, as you can see in the left panel, it is going to the detail project slash id of 2. If I just hover over it, it is showing id number 3. If I go to the first one, as you can see in the first card, it is showing detail project of id of 1. And as you can see in the component, in the root URL, as you can see localhost 3000 slash detail project slash particular id, and we are holding this id inside this detail component. If I just zoom in, you will see this perfectly. As you can see, this is the id that we are getting. And if I go to our second card, as you can see detail project, as you can see it is getting the id of 2 because this is the id of 2 project information. If I go to third one, it is showing the id of 3. So it is completely dynamic, and based on those id we are holding this information. And here we need to get all of our data and fetch all of our data, especially by particularly by id. Which id information I want the detail information on. I want the detail of this particular card, it will show here. If I go to there, it will show the here. Okay, based on those id we're gonna parse all of our data. Okay, it is not normal project, it is actually the Redux project, that's why we need that. So here we need to create our constants first. Here I can just copy everything from here. I need to write detail project request, detail project success and fail. So these are the constants or action we are creating here, and we have to use it inside our reducer. Let's go to our project reducer file, and here instead of add we need to use detail. Okay, here I'm going to write detail project reducer. Okay, detail project reducer, and here in the state we can pass a simple project, and this project will hold empty object here because this is empty object because in the beginning we don't have any information, and this is an object, this is not array like this one. In this case we are holding only one project information, which is actually given by the id. So this is only one object information we need. So and here we need to add our all the actions that we have created. So detail project request, and then if it is success is equals to false, and we don't need any other thing, and you can also remove this stuff, we don't need that success. Okay, so here we're gonna paste the same thing, detail project request success, and here success is equals to true, and here in the project object, as you can see in the beginning it is empty, there is nothing in this project object, but when we get the detail project success response, we're gonna get all of our data inside the action.payload, because payload holds all of the data that is coming from our API. Okay, and in the project object we're going to hold all of our data. All of the data is be filled inside this project object. And suppose there is failure, so detail object project failure, then the success is equals to false. You don't even have to write this stuff, I don't think it is very important. And in the error we're going to have error in the action.payload, and we don't need this stuff. So there is 3 actions type. Okay, based on those actions type we're going to do some stops. And now we need to create our actions in the project actions. As you can see, let me zoom it out a little bit, just copy all the actions and paste it, and here it is for actually detail of project. So here I just named it get detail of project, and it will take a parameter called id. Okay, so based on those id we're gonna have to get all of our data using the axios.get. Here instead of post I need to use axios.get and give our, and we need to pass our id from here. Okay, so this is the ID that is actually the use params ID. As you can see, this is the ID that we are passing in the API to get our information. Here we don't need to pass any data dynamically. Here what we can use, you can use backtick, and here you can use dynamic data. Here in the curly brace you can pass this ID. As you can see, this is the ID that we are fetching inside this get project detail action. Here we need to pass this parameter ID, and based on those ID we are fetching all of our data. I think this part is very simple and very easy for many people. This is just a simple API call using the asynchronous way. And in the success, when there is success, you just add detail project request success. We need to, in the payload we need to pass all of our data like before. Okay, this is very simple stuff. So in the beginning there should be a detail project request. Okay, then when it is done, when there is error, we need to pass one more, which is detail project failed. Okay, so these are all the things that we need to do. Now we have to dispatch these actions, because based on those actions we need to work in our UI component. So we need to copy this thing, get detail project, and we need to use that same thing inside our detail project.jsx component, because you know this is the UI component, React UI component, and it uses the actions to pass and communicate all of our data. Suppose we are sending some information in the parameter of the add project action, we passed all of our project data from the UI. Okay, and for the detail we just need the ID, and based on this ID we need to get the data for each particular project information, so that we can see the detail of each information. So this is very simple workflow. So go to our detail project, and here we have already got the ID that we are passing inside app.js. As you can see, we are passing this dynamic ID, and if I go to there, we just holding it dispatch. So const dispatch, so dispatch is equals to use dispatch, that we can use this thing to get up all of our data or to call these actions. Okay, get project detail actions. So we need that. This is very important thing, and here we are just using it. And also we need to use one more thing, and we need to go to our app.js, and we already created the project reducer. Okay, detail project reducer. We can copy this thing and go to our store.js, and we need to assign it here, detail of project, and here we are assigned detail project reducer. So this is the reducer that we have created just now. As you can see, we are assigning into the word store, so that we can get the detail of project data inside our application using the use selector. Const project detail is equals to use selector, and this use selector also coming from our React Redux, and use dispatch is also coming from the same thing. Here we need to pass our state, and in the state dot detail of project, and which information we need in the store.js, just copy this thing. This is the thing that we are giving all the information, and when we go to our detail project, as you can see, this project will hold every information that we need. Okay, so this is the particular information we'll be needing, and we need to go to our detail project again, and in the state, this is the state that we need, detail project. Okay, and we're gonna parse all of our information using the object destruction. Have our project, we can have our loading, we can have our error, project detail, because this is the constant that is holding every single state, and from this state, okay, we can get this data and we can use this thing. Okay, very simple and easy stuff. Page load. Okay, when the ID is changing, we need to show a different content. When the ID is different, we need to show a different content dynamically. So we need to load our page again and again using the use effect. So that's why based on those ID, you need to show our information. So in the use effect, and here we need to pass our dependency array here. In the dependency array, we need to pass our ID, because when the ID is changed, we need to load different content. For ID number 2, we need to show different content. For ID number 3, we need to show different content. So dependency array, this ID is very important. And here we need to dispatch this. Dispatch which event? Dispatch get detail of project. As you can see, this is the action. get detail project, and it takes a parameter called id. Which id we need? We have the id information. As you can see, using the use params, we are getting this id. So this is the id information we need to pass, and based on this id, it will fetch all of our data from our REST API. As you can see, if I just save this and go to project action, as you can see, based on this id we passed here, based on this id we are getting all of our information from our backend and show it inside the payload. And inside the payload we are now getting all of the data, and in the project reducer now, when there is success, the project data will hold everything inside its project object, and now we can easily access it inside this part. If I go to detail project, now as you can see in the detail project, this is actually the state. We are getting this reducer, and this reducer has all the data like is project data, error, loading, success, all of those things. And we are fetching all of our data using the dispatch and using the actions get detail project by its id. And also we need to pass our dispatch here, okay, as a dependency, because it is dynamically changing this id. And when you have the id of 2, it is showing different component, it is reloading this component again. When the id is 3, this is reloading this component again. So we need to use effect here in the detail component. This is a very important thing. And let me go to our ui, and let me copy everything, this whole div. Let me copy everything and just show it here, just put it here. I know you guys are not beginner, you know how to do simple UI design. And in the container I have taken a row, and in the column, very simple, and in the column I have taken a card component. Here as you can see, I have taken a card component, and card has an image, and in the source tag, in the source we have the project.thumbnail, because now project has all the information that we need, and it has a thumbnail object to get our image data. Then in the card title we have the project.title. Then for the category you have the category, and then in the we have description. Here we're gonna also show the description here. And then if we want to just in the anchor tag we have the href. If I want to see the project demo or the project link or the GitHub link, you can see this thing. And also we have a link to update some data. So this is just uncomment this, we're going to use it when we want to update. And we have a button, and on click we also have a delete. Okay, so at this moment we don't need this, and just writing it like that. At this moment we don't need this feature, but make sure that you have the delete button and update button to show everything. And we just need, this is the information that we need. We are just showing all the information, nothing else. Let me check if it is working properly or not. And we need to have a container, card, and button. So we need to import all of those stuffs. To React Bootstrap, we need to import container, button, card, row, and column. So let's check it out. Let's see. Okay, let me check it out. Inspect, Redux. So okay, we have the success. So in the detail project, this reducer, the loading is false, success is equals to true. And in the project array, in the project object, actually we have the information, but it is not showing. So let me check what's the problem there. In the loading is equals to true, in the when there is detail project request, make sure the loading is equals to true, and we need to pass one more information, which is spread operator and this state. Spread operator means whatever we have currently, suppose we don't have anything, we need to add the previous one and the current object as well. Okay, so suppose I have in the object I have in the object I have 1, 2, and another object I have so the spread operator actually does, it holds the previous state as well, and it will also combine the current one that we have added. So this is where the spread operator is very important. It is just appending the previous object with the current one. Okay, if there is previously we have nothing, as you can see in the previous object, project object, we don't have anything. Now when we are calling the id by its id, we have all the data in the project object. As you can see, when you go to our actions, as you can see, we have all of our data, and we are passing into the payload, and now we have all the information in the project object. Now we need to combine the previous one, which is empty, and the new one which has some data like this, okay, or title, thumbnail, all of those things. We need to just combine everything so that it looks better and we get all of our data. So this is the very important stuff. We need to just use this stuff when there is request. Okay, So that's why this is the correction. This is very important and many people don't understand it. When you just work with Redux, you understand what's the mistake there. Okay, so as you can see, now we have every single information like detail, is title, category, description, project link, demo. If I just click on this, we're going to the GitHub panel as well. As you can see, if I want to delete it, this is the functionality that we're going to build later, and also the update functionality. So this is very simple stuff, and I hope you understand a lot of things regarding this and there is no issues whatsoever. So this is the very important steps. And if you want to understand the as you can see, if I just zoom in, a JavaScript spread operator allows you to quickly copy all or part of an existing array or object into another array or object. It can be worked with array, it can be worked with our object. So it is very important to understand what this is. Okay, we can work with our object and it can copy all or part of an existing array or object. As you can see, it is working now perfectly, and it is going to the detail project of ID of 1 and it is showing its information. And if I go to ID number 2, it is showing its own information. If I go to the ID number of 5, it is showing its own information. So all of the stuff is working without any issues and any problems. You can see is detailed properly. So, and also you understand the dynamic routing here. So basically you understand the dynamic routing, how we can pass our dynamic ID and hold it inside use params, and based on those stuff, so we can call our fetch our API and load all of our data, and based on those ID we just fetch all of our information and inside the actions and use it in the dispatch inside our main component. And we also have to change our states based on some action in the reducer, which is very important, and store it as well. So these are the stuff that we need to do in every single project, every single component, and every single functionality that you have to do. Suppose for detail you are just doing it like that. For adding, this would be a little bit different, this is stated a little bit different, this would be a little bit different. So all of the thing is a little bit of different. Okay, so in the next part I'm going to work with the update and delete functionality, which is very important and very easy, and many people understand it within a few seconds. Okay, so this is all for it guys today. I hope you understand a lot of things in this video. Until then, take care, bye bye. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to work with our update functionality, delete functionality one by one. Okay, till then, take care, bye bye. I'll see you in the next video.